Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Progressive Talk with Ellie K right here on KPTR, your progressive talk radio station in the Valley. Thank goodness we have one, and we need to remember that and keep it going, my friends. If you've got a business or if you have something to do or any way that you need some advertisements, this is the station. This is the place to call to get your ad on the air. The rates are really, really, really reasonable, and it'll help keep this wonderful station going for us and keeping us informed all over the Valley. Unless you've been living in Antarctica for the last 6 months, you have become fully aware that there is an election coming up on November 4th. This program, as you are fully aware of, the Progressive Talk with Ellie K, and by the way, we are in association with the Democratic Headquarters of the Desert. We have been having some of our candidates on the program, and I will tell you that from now until the end of October, we're going to concentrate even more on having the candidates on this program. It is important for you to hear them. It is important for you to know who they are, where they stand on the issues, why they are running. And if you find a candidate that you hear on this program that piques your interest, we're going to tell you how you can write a check to help them get elected, because unfortunately money is required in elections these days. So we're going to start this morning, or actually continue with some of the sporadic candidates that we've had on the program, the sporadic programming. We're going to, as I say, starting today, every week, we're going to have a candidate on the program. And today we are delighted. I met this man recently. I am very impressed with him. And he is running for Cathedral City City Council, and that's Shelley Kaplan. Good morning.
Good morning, Ellie.
Welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to have you with us.
Thank you very much for having me here.
Well, we're delighted to have you here. I know there is also another Democrat running, but because of his work schedules, we may not be able to have him on the program. His name is, I'm probably going to really mess this up. As my friend points out, I don't do well with names, but it is Fausto Jimenez, I believe is his name. Am I correct on that?
Asensio. Well,
that's his middle name. Okay. Yes, it's Fausto Asensio Jimenez. Okay. So we've now given him a plug, my friends. But we're going to talk this morning with Shelley. So the obvious question I want to know is, who are you?
Well, that's a great question. I'm someone who has had a very successful career and decided that I needed to move to a warm climate for the rest of my life, and looked around, had visited this area a number of times. I bought a house here in 2008 and decided this was the place I wanted to retire to.
Okay.
And so I'm in Cathedral City. I love being in Cathedral City. I certainly love the weather, and this has been great.
Then why did you get involved with politics? I mean, here you were a retiree. You were supposed to relax, play golf or tennis or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good question, too. I actually got involved in politics fairly early on. We met a number of people. I met Greg Pettis, who's certainly one of the present city councilors. We were actually supporting Chip Yarborough, who was running for mayor a couple of years ago, and really only lost by 13 votes. And we really got involved in his campaign again. He was going to run for city council for this election. And we were part of his strategic planning team. And about 4 or 5 weeks ago, we met with Chip, and Chip had made the decision for personal reasons not to run.
Uh-huh.
And I really felt there needed to be a progressive Democrat on the ticket, and that I could really accomplish some things for the city. And I should also point out, I really got involved in the city before then, because I applied for and was appointed to the Coachella Valley Mosquito and Vector Control Board, and I also applied for and was appointed to the Planning Commission. So I was already on the City Planning Commission. And as I started looking at this, it seemed to me that I could do a lot more positive for the city being on City Council rather than just on Planning Commission. And so I decided to run. Now, I only did this, and I've never run for office before.
Okay.
I only did this, 4.5, 5 weeks ago, and it certainly has been an interesting process.
It is a process, isn't it? People
Yes, it
don't
is.
realize when they run for office that it's quite a process. It's a bit exhausting,
Oh, yeah.
but it's it's always interesting. Every
Yes.
day is something fresh. Let's talk about the city. Let's talk about Cathedral City, where I live right across the street, actually. I live in Rancho Mirage, but it's literally Plumley Street, Plumley Avenue separates my area from Cathedral City. So I'm very much in tune, I think, with what goes on there. That city is, in my opinion, in a yin and yang. Part of it is just deteriorating, and yet there is some growth going on. What do you see as happening in the city of Cathedral City right now?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, first of all, Cathedral City is a Proposition 13 city. So, when you look at our property taxes, we're only getting 16 cents on the dollar for property tax, and that certainly has a financial impact on the city. Then, of course, we've had just this horrendous downturn from the economy over the last 5 or 6 years. And while we're starting to recover from that finally, it certainly had a major impact on the finances of the city. And then, of course, the state's decision to eliminate the redevelopment authority certainly had another major impact on the city and its ability to move forward. And yet, you're right, I think there's a lot of things still going on in the city. I think, and I've said this in my campaign materials, that the city is really poised to take off in terms of development and growth. And I think that managing that growth, managing it sustainably, and getting the city really moving forward again is what I would like to do as city councilor. I think there are areas of the city that really need to be redeveloped. The city made a decision a long time ago to take a whole series of parcels, especially in the downtown area, and then raise them in order to redevelop them. And then, of course, the economy tanked and nothing happened. And they couldn't find the right people. Plus, the whole nature of retail, for example, has changed from the original plan that was developed in 2001 to now. And so I think we need to revisit the plans for redeveloping the city. And I think, but I do think, and I've had some conversations with commercial real estate developers, commercial real estate agents out there, and they tell me that there are developers out there who really want to move into the city and start development in the city. I think they've felt they've been held back partly by the economy, partly by the characteristics of the council as it's been in the past few years. But I really think they're out there and they're willing to start doing some development in the city again. I think we have opportunities. For example, the Verano neighborhood is a great neighborhood, a beautiful design, but only built out to the tune of about 1/5 of what was originally planned for the area as a residential neighborhood. And we've been over there, we've looked at it. The design is such that there's no cars on the street because all the parking is in back and alleyways and all the trash gets handled out of view. Beautiful views of the mountains. We have some of the most spectacular views in this city.
Yeah.
We now know that there's developers out there who really want to start moving that project ahead.
Where's the location of this project?
This is Verano, which is out to Rio Vista area. It's out close to Palm Springs on the north side of the city.
Okay.
So we've just approved a project through the Planning Commission and then through the Council for a 96-unit development near Landau that's about to start construction. We have a new Aaron's going in next to the dollar store on Date Palm. We just opened Harbor Freight. We were, I think, very successful in attracting that business to the city. We've got In Shape, a new fitness facility that is taking over the Albertson store on Date Palm. So there's stuff starting to happen. And to be honest with you, I think if you look at the city staff, we've had some major changes in the city staff. We have a new city manager, Charlie McClendon, great guy. He came to us from Arizona where he was city manager in a city that was in very similar shape to Cathedral City when he got there, and really moved that city forward. So we're really looking for great things from Charlie.
Well, let me ask you this: you're talking about new development,
yes,
and my only question is, and I've frequently asked this because it's something that's bothered me for a long time. There are structures already built that are empty. They have been empty for a long time.
correct.
I think right off the top of my head, Sam's Club that used to be located on Date Palm and Gerald Ford, on that corner, if you will, between Plumley and Gerald Ford. That's been empty for at least 5 years, at least. And yet, if you're talking new development, are you talking about new construction? Are you talking about going into these areas and stripping them out and cleaning them up and recycling them, if you will?
I'm talking about both, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I mean, we clearly have some large empty lots that we need to address. In the downtown area, I actually think a lot of that, some of the plans that were originally developed need to move forward. For example, a good quality hotel with event space in that location. But I think a lot of the downtown will probably be residential in nature with support retail and commercial for the residential population. But you're right. I mean, our primary retail spaces are Date Palm, Ramon, Perez, I mean, and in the north end of the city. And those are the areas where we need to focus in, I think, on infill. Now, Albertsons is a good example.
Yeah,
and I did mention
true.
that one. You know, it had been empty for a long time, and now we have a major fitness facility going in there. The Sam's Club is another good example. My understanding is that there's actually discussion underway with a developer to turn that into residential and retail.
Okay.
And so they're really talking about a major reconstruction of that facility and area. And so I know the city staff is working on that. I don't know what the status is, but there's certainly opportunities there. There are also empty lots along
Well,
Date
that's
Palm,
true. Yeah, there are some empty lots along Date Palm.
We need to fill that in. We just approved the Northgate Church, which is a big empty lot on the corner of 30th. And I've viewed the designs as part of the Planning Commission. I really like the design. It's a very nice design. And then the land right next to it is still for sale for development. And I think that is going to trigger more development along that line. So I think we not only need to take the empty storefronts, which we've got in all those locations, and get those filled, and get them filled with retail that's appropriate for the characteristics of Cathedral City and what the residents of Cathedral City want, as well as develop the empty lots that are on the retail areas, and then develop the large expanses of empty lots that we have.
You know, one of the things that's been, and this kind of triggered in my mind, because recently we had Stephen Hernandez from Coachella, who's running for mayor. And as everyone knows, I think that Eduardo Garcia has done a wonderful job with Coachella as mayor. He is now, of course, our candidate for the 56th State Assembly.
Correct.
We've also just had recently Adam Sanchez, mayor of Desert Hot Springs. And what I found interesting in both discussions with these gentlemen was that the cities have defined themselves. Now, Desert Hot Springs, for example, they are going to be defining themselves literally as a health and wellness community. I mean, they have the hot springs. They're going to define themselves as that on a national level. With the city of Coachella, Stephen was talking about the fact that there is so much culture there. What is the culture of Cathedral City? I mean, it doesn't seem to have an identity.
Well, it's an excellent question, Ellie, and I think that's a discussion that really needs to happen as part of a strategic planning discussion with the new council once the new council and the new mayor are in place. My take on the city is that it's a very diverse city, and that it needs to reflect and take pride in its diversity. And it's also a neighborhood city and a family-oriented city.
Yes.
And I think we need to focus on family-oriented activities and events and the kinds of things that will support the characteristics of the population that exists in the city.
We're going to take a quick break on that note. You are listening this morning to Progressive Talk with LEK right here on KPTR. We are in association, as always, with the Democratic headquarters of the desert. Get yourself a glass of iced tea. It's hot out there today, folks. We'll be right back.
First for customer satisfaction. First for customer loyalty. First for a better price. Fiat of Palm Springs in the Cathedral City Auto Center, where it's our September sell down on every new Fiat, including new 2015 Fiat 500 Pop hatchbacks from a Fiat of Palm Springs low $11,980. 2015 Pops from just $11,980. New Fiat 500 Electrics from a low $169 a month. Fiat 500 Electrics. We have them from just $169 a month. 4 doors, Abarths, Pops, and Electrics. It's our September sell down on every new Fiat. 0 down, 0% APR financing up to 60 months on select models, and no payments till December. Now at your friendly Fiat of Palm Springs. Family owned and operated in the Cathedral City Auto Center.
500 Pop includes 3,000 total Californian retail Fiat consumer cash and coupons. 500E, 36-month lease, $24.99 total down, 10,000 miles per year, 25 cents per excess mile. Includes 8,000 total Californian retail Fiat consumer cash and coupons. Numbers 507-761, 291-221. All offers with approved credit.
We're here to say a word about cancer.
When you talk to someone who has been diagnosed with cancer,
be positive.
Be supportive.
that's it. Stop right there.
Don't start telling them about your Uncle Vern.
Or the next door neighbor.
Don't be grim. And try not to disappear either.
Don't cross to the other side of the street.
Don't stop calling.
Don't cry.
Don't ever say, you're living my worst nightmare.
You know who you are.
Here's the important part.
Be positive.
Be positive.
Sé positivo. Say these words.
You will do great. Keep calling. Check in.
Be a friend.
Or be a new friend.
Be a supportive
Positive friend.
Smile.
Try not to be afraid.
or act afraid. Fear is not useful.
Be a funny, hopeful human being. If you come across cancer.
Let it transform you into your most positive self.
And inspire.
Urge.
Fortify.
Rally. Encourage someone to do great.
This message brought to you by cancer survivors.
For more information, to hear stories, or share your own, visit DoGreatCampaign.com. Do great.
Control. We can see socks for miles.
I'm sorry, Lunar One. Did you say socks?
Miles and miles of socks.
Like we wear on our feet.
Roger, Control. The socks appear to cover the entire dark side of the moon.
In pairs?
No, just random socks and giant, fierce mountains of dryer lint. The search is over! Yeah!
There are some things you can search for and never ever find, but when it comes to finding a local job, DesertHelpWanted.com has made the search super easy and free.
Do you see any purple argyle?
Search by keywords or phrases to find hundreds of jobs in accounting, HR, recruiting, retail, or healthcare or IT, and post your resume in minutes.
Lots of tube socks and a... Holy cow, there is a river of knee-highs!
I guess the search is over. Check us out. We're DesertHelpWanted.com. Long name, amazing results.
Are you sure you don't see any purple argyles?
And good morning once again. Welcome back to Progressive Talk with LEK right here on KPTR, your Progressive Talk radio station. We are, as ever, in association with the Democratic headquarters of the desert, and you might want to get yourself a pen or a pencil, something to write with in our next break, because I'm going to be giving you the dates of some events that are coming up for our candidates, and you're going to want to call the headquarters to get further details and reservations, but I promise you there's a lot of good stuff that's going to be happening in the next couple of months. But today we are talking with a candidate for city council in Cathedral City, and that is Shelley Kaplan. And I'm just delighted that you're with us this morning. We were talking in the last segment about identity, city identities. And you were talking about in our last segment before the break about the really what Cathedral City is about is families. Mm-hmm. And you have a large Hispanic population in Cathedral City. And I know from speaking with some leaders in the Hispanic community, the promises were made that there was going to be a better cooperation between City Hall and the Hispanic community. That did not happen. I'd like your comments about that.
I think that's an unbelievably important point, and certainly one of the points and one of the platform purposes of my campaign. The Latino community in the city is over 60% of the population. And there really needs to be a much closer relationship between the workings of City Hall and the neighborhoods. And that includes the Hispanic population in the neighborhood. There needs to be more relationship with leaders of the Latino community. And I'm not sure that there's a single person out there. I think there are a whole series of people who speak for the Latino community, but we need to get them much more involved. We not only need to get them much more involved in the city, we need to get them much more involved in voting. I mean, the reality is, the we the people is basically our opportunity to participate in democracy is through voting.
Right.
And right now, I think that only a very small percentage of the Latino population are registered, and even a smaller percentage vote. And we really want them to be heard more than they're presently being heard. So one of the things we really need to do, I've talked about neighborhood councils as a way to start getting more relationship between the city staff and the city council and the neighborhoods. But there have to be ways. I know none of this that we do can take up too much of the staff time. We don't have that much staff time to spend for the city. But we need to find ways in which to get the neighbors and the citizens more involved in the process. I guess I would also say that not only is the city population heavily Latino, but we certainly have a large gay population in the city, an LGBT population, and we really need to make sure that that population is heavily involved and being listened to from the city perspective. We actually have a lot of artists in the city, and I think we really need to focus on the art aspects of the city. I know that the Public Arts Commission for the city is looking at a lot of opportunities to try to improve the looks of the city from a visual standpoint. And I think that we have great artists in the city that can help with that process. And the other thing is, I think we're a historic city. There will actually be some books out. I know the Historic Society is coming out with a book talking about sort of the later history of the city. And my understanding is that one of the members of the Cove is also coming out with a book talking about even the earlier art history of the city, and the Agnes Pelton Society, which talks about the Agnes Pelton House. But there are a whole series of artists that existed in the city back in the 20s and in the 30s that were really a major artist colony for this country. Very well-known artists, and I think we really need to use that base as our part of our pride and our selling of our city.
With regard to the artists, with regard to the Hispanic community and how large it is, would you as a city council member consider appointing a committee, a subcommittee, if you will? I mean, you've got the Planning Commission and you've got the Arts Commission. It seems that perhaps what is needed, and maybe it's needed in more cities than just Cathedral City, but with the population of the Hispanics being as large as it is there, creating a subcommittee whereby community leaders could get together and make recommendations to the city. Because again, what I've been hearing is that there's a real feeling that they have been ignored for a very long time. And again, there is someone who's running and there are seats available, so it's not like I'm saying only you or Faustus can win this thing. You could both win this election for city council. But it just seems that there needs to be more outreach. And have you, in your capacity, have you thought of ideas of how you could do that outreach?
I definitely agree with you. There needs to be more outreach. I'm not sure what that entails at this point. I need to get more feedback and input from the Latino community, the Hispanic community, to understand what they would like to see. I think we need to hear from them in terms of what the best way is for them to provide input to the city. Whether it's a subcommittee, whether it's a separate committee, whether it's a regular meeting with city staff and city council, whether it's a neighborhood council. There are a whole series of ways, and maybe that needs to be all of the above. But I think we need to hear from them as to what the best way. I don't want to sort of set up a structure and say you need to participate in the structure. I want them to tell me what's going to work for them.
Sure, and absolutely. As I say, I just had heard from various sources that this has been an issue for a long time. Yeah. I think what you're saying is on the right track. You need to say to the folks that are involved, how do we work together?
Yeah,
how do we
exactly.
get this thing to? All right, talked about hotel. You mentioned the hotel. Yeah. I know that for years we've heard that Sheridan Hotel was coming in to Cathedral City and that it was going to be a union hotel. Where does that stand?
Well, I'm not necessarily privy to everything that's going on, but I do know that there is still conversation underway for a hotel in that location on 111. As to what the details are, I don't think anyone knows except the people who are really dealing with the developers and the negotiators at this point. But that is clearly an area that we think should. Now, and there are so many parcels downtown. Right now, obviously, we're waiting for the state. This is an important point to make for everyone. We have about, I think, 109 parcels that the city owns, mostly in the downtown area. Because of the elimination of the redevelopment authority, we can no longer sell those parcels to developers. We need to get the state to approve it first. And by the way, the state gets the money. We don't get the money anymore.
Wait a minute. Where how?
That's the
seriously.
Seriously, yes.
Okay.
And so we're in the process. We've presented the plan to the state. The state got back to the city with some questions and issues that they wanted us to address. My understanding is that we've gone back to the state at this point. We're waiting for the state to make a decision, which we hope will happen within the next 4 to 6 months. Once we hear from the state, once the state has finalized this, we will be in a position to start moving ahead with developers in terms of these properties. And that's really going to be when we can start this process moving forward.
Well, with regard to a hotel coming in, will there be an effort made to make it a union hotel? I've got to tell you, quite frankly, Shelley, I'm going to interrupt you for a moment. Yeah. There are no union hotels in Riverside County. None. Zip. Zero. And in my mind, that means that we are losing business for conventions. The California Democratic Party, for example, cannot come here for a convention. Right. There is no union hotel. So will there be a real push, finally, to have this hotel, when it and if it comes in, to have it as a union hotel?
Again, I'm not privy to those conversations, but
okay.
My understanding that is part of the conversation, that it would be a union hotel. But again.
Okay, we'll wait till you get elected.
It's too early to tell. But
we'll wait till you're elected,
a goal. Yeah.
And then we're going to have you back.
And the goal. I don't think we're going to see a 5-star hotel in Cathedral City, and I don't think it's appropriate for Cathedral City. But a 3-star hotel, 4-star hotel may be what we're looking at. And it needs to have event space. It needs to have entertainment space because, we want to attract visitors to the city as well. There are 2 large empty parcels around City Hall at the moment that are actually owned by the city. They're not part of the redevelopment. And right now they're dirt lots. They're big dirt lots. And there's a plan that's been done, a landscaping plan, to really convert those into event space for the city. And we really need to focus on event space for the city in that location. We've got the IMAX, we've got the UltraStar going, we have City Hall, we have the parking garage and all the parking to support it. And right now we're doing a lot of events there. And by the way, I have to tell you, one of the greatest things that the city did was to recreate the position of communications and events manager and to hire Chris Parman, who's our new events person. Chris was at the city council last night. And first of all, I have to tell everyone, go online, discovercathedralcity.com. We have a new non-government website for the city that's got all the event information on it. It has opportunities to find out more about the city. It's not a government website, so it's not all this cut and dry and rules and regulations and all the stuff that most people don't want to see. This is a real website about what it's like to live and work and play in Cathedral City. So there's tremendous stuff going on, and so we have a whole series. He just went down a whole series of events that are planned just for the rest of this calendar year, as well as some things that are coming up in January and February. And there's a long list of them, and we need a place to hold those that not only is going to be a pleasant, exciting, enjoyable place for the residents of the city to come to, but will attract visitors to the city as well. And one of the things that came up last night was a preliminary plan and approval by the council to actually do some preliminary landscaping to one of these locations so that some of these events will be able to use this space in an attractive way just during the coming months. And they actually have a plan to pay for that as well. So I think that's a big thing that we're looking forward to seeing.
And it just occurred to me along that line, though, what is considered downtown of Cathedral City? Well, I mean, I think of Date Palm, and yet there's also the corridor on 111 where the City Hall and the IMAX and the Mary Pickford is and everything. It just occurred to me, what is considered downtown?
Downtown, I think, is considered 111.
Okay.
The 111 stretch.
Okay. So that stretch of
I think we're really focusing on the area around City Hall.
Okay.
Across from City Hall and next to City Hall.
Well, and there's the community center.
There's a community center right across the street.
That is, by the way, wonderful.
Yes,
it is
and the
really
senior center, great location.
Really good. Yeah.
With a whole series of great programs that are available to people.
Yeah, and people don't realize that. There is a lot that's going on at that community center. There's exercise programs, and there's bridge, and there's bingo, and there's all sorts of wonderful things.
And informational and educational sessions. Exactly.
Yeah, it's a really good facility that's well run, quite honestly. Okay, so now we understand what downtown is. Now, the next big question is, there's also talk of annexation.
Yes. And
how's that looking right now, as far as you know?
Well, the talk of annexation is obviously Thousand Palms. There are some people who believe that I think that the majority of residents of Thousand Palms don't want to be annexed. The reality is that sooner or later they're an unincorporated space. They need to link up to another city. And the logical city, really, I think, for them to link up with is going to be Cathedral City. There is, I think, a phased approach to this. There is a developer who is interested in developing hundreds of acres between Cathedral City and Thousand Palms. And Cathedral City is in the process of annexing this first phase. We've actually just signed an agreement for preliminary coverage from the county for fire coverage for the area. There's no buildings there at this point. But this will be a major development along Interstate 10. And Interstate 10 is going to be a very important development area.
It sure will be, and I think it's been overlooked, quite frankly, with all that land out there. I'm amazed, but we have to take another break. Again, I remind you to get yourself a pen or a pencil so you can mark down some of the dates of some good stuff happening. You are listening to Progressive Talk with Ellie Kay. We'll be right back.
Tire pressure. It's not just a lot of hot air anymore. Hi, Ron Ananian, the Car Doctor. Time for another Motoring Minute. How to put air in your tires. It sounds so simple. How hard can it be? Well, the fact is that a lot of newer vehicles now have tire pressure monitoring systems. It's mandatory. It's an act of Congress by law since model year 2008 that all vehicles sold in the continental United States, in North America in some regions, are now going to have TPMS, the ability to tell the driver when the vehicle's tire is lower on air than its specification calls for. So if you want to add air to your vehicle's tires or maintain them, the first thing you need is a good tire pressure gauge. It's getting more and more difficult to find a good tire pressure gauge. Go for a name brand. Go for something of quality. We have spent upwards of $100 for a good tire pressure gauge in the shop, just so you know. Then you've got to find a source of tire. But keep in mind, you want to gauge tire pressure based on the temperature of the vehicle where it's going to be operated. With your Motoring Minute, I'm the Car Doctor, Ron Ananian.
On the next episode of Recipes for Disaster.
So we've got our neighbor Paul coming over tonight for a barbecue, which is why I prepared a delicious lemon rosemary steak marinade from my special collection of old family recipes. To make sure the steaks are extra, extra, extra tender, I left them marinating out on the counter overnight, just like Nana used to.
Maria may mean well, but without food safety, it never ends well. Always thaw or marinate foods in the refrigerator at 40 degrees Fahrenheit or below, or you could make your friends and family really sick. Maria's neighbor Paul didn't think twice about the steak he ate until he was presenting his company's financial forecast to the board. That's when a sudden bout of food poisoning made it explicitly clear that profits weren't the only thing on the rise. Watch Recipes for Disaster at foodsafety.gov. You'll learn the right steps as Maria does everything wrong. Brought to you by the USDA, HHS, and the Ad Council.
We are here to say a word about cancer.
When you talk to someone who has been diagnosed with cancer,
Be positive.
Be supportive.
That's it. Stop right there.
Don't start telling them about your Uncle Vern.
or the next door neighbor.
Don't be grim.
Try not to disappear either.
Don't cross to the other side of the street.
Don't stop calling.
Don't cry.
Don't ever say you're living my worst nightmare.
You know who you are.
Here's the important part.
Be positive.
Be positive.
Sé positivo.
Say these words.
You will do great. Keep calling. Check in.
Be a friend.
Or be a new friend.
Be a supportive
Positive friend.
Smile.
Try not to be afraid.
or act afraid. Fear is not useful.
Be a funny, hopeful human being. If you come across cancer,
Let it transform you into your most positive self.
And inspire.
Urge.
fortify.
Rally.
Encourage someone to do
Great.
This message brought to you by cancer survivors.
For more information, to hear stories, or share your own, visit DoGreatCampaign.com. Do great.
Welcome back to Progressive Talk with Ellie K. right here on KPTR in association with Democratic Headquarters of the Desert. We have been having a conversation this morning with a gentleman who is running for City Council in Cathedral City, Shelley Kaplan, who has been quite informative, and we've been having, I think, a pretty good conversation. In the last segment, though, and I want to get back to it briefly, we were talking about annexation and the possibilities, good, bad, indifferent, with regard to Thousand Palms. Your thoughts?
So what I was saying before, Ellie, is that right now Cathedral City really does not have a presence on Interstate 10. And
Right.
I think that it's very important for the city to have that kind of presence, and for people driving by to understand, who we are as a city. We have this opportunity. There's a developer who's interested in developing 600 plus acres of land on the north side of 10 with residential, with retail, with commercial, maybe even light industrial. And I think this is a tremendous opportunity for the city. And right now the city is moving ahead on that phase to absorb that land and to work with this developer moving forward. This will be a 10 to 20 year project. So it's quite a big undertaking, hundreds of millions of dollars.
And jobs.
And jobs, exactly. Very important. And I think in the longer run, the second phase of this is really the incorporation of Thousand Palms into Cathedral City. I think before that happens, there needs to be a fairly complete evaluation of all the infrastructure needs and relationships that have to occur between the city and between Thousand Palms in order for that to happen smoothly and to be beneficial to both cities. I don't think it makes sense, unless it's going to be beneficial to both cities, to move that forward, and I do think that it will be.
Well, this brings me to something else, though, that you were just talking about, the infrastructure and the development, and how this could be a huge project, obviously.
Yeah.
You're also talking about new homes being developed, new residential areas. Where's the water coming from?
Well, that's an excellent question. A good portion of my life in the last 12, 14 years was actually spent being the major sustainability officer for a college campus. And I'm very proud to say that I reduced the carbon footprint of the campus by 40% over a 6-year period. And as a result of that, when I retired, they actually named a sustainability award for me, and they're about to give out the first award
congratulations.
this coming month. So thank you. They wanted me to come. They wanted me to come back and to be there for the award, and I said, I'm in the middle of an election campaign, and I really can't get away. I would have liked to, but thanks. Water is a critical aspect and area for concern for the valley. In addition, of course, the state just passed the $7.2 billion water package.
Right.
Some of that relates to the Salton Sea, which is another critical issue that I think we need to look at and address. And some of it relates to the aquifer and control of the aquifer, which the state has never had before. And implementation of that is going to be critical. So providing input to the state as part of that process is going to be a very important part of the council's responsibility moving forward. But I think we need to be more sustainable than we are. And I think there are a lot of ways to do it. I still think we're using more water than we need to. The city uses 4 times per person the amount of water than Los Angeles uses. Some of that relates to golf courses. Some of it relates to the amount of irrigation that we do in grassy areas. A lot of it actually relates to agriculture. And let's face it, agriculture is a critical business component of the state and something we need to continue to support. And that also ties back, I think, into the Salton Sea. You know, in a couple of years, the water runoff that's flowing in the Salton Sea is being diverted and reduced. That's going to have an impact on the Salton Sea. We can't let the Salton Sea dry up. Letting the Salton Sea dry up is going to be detrimental to the degree that I don't think anyone quite understands.
Well, we have, as it turns out, we have done several programs on this show about that, because it is, I agree with you, it is so critical. And fortunately, we have a Congressman Ruiz, who's aware of it, and we have a Eduardo Garcia and Carolee Hargrove, both of whom are running for state assembly, but they're aware of this issue. And you're right, it's critical. Yeah. We obviously have to have you back, because there's so many more questions that I have, but I want to get to important stuff regarding your campaign, because it's important for people after hearing you this morning. I think they're going to want to get involved with you. And I would like to continue our conversation at a later date about the Salton Sea, certainly, and also the annexation, because again, I look at the fact that we want to do all this development, and my question always goes back to, where's the water going to come from? And this is something that I think has to be explored further. And unfortunately, our show isn't long enough to do that this morning. But how does one get involved with your campaign, and what events do you have coming up?
Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to share that. First of all, I would direct everyone to my website, which is ShelleyKaplan.com, and that will give you information, more information about me, about my background and history, and the kinds of things that I'm looking at trying to do as a new council member. And if you want to reach me, you can reach me by phone at 760-980-0658. The big event that's coming up this week, we're doing Bowling for Dollars. I don't know whether anyone remembers that show or not, but we're doing Bowling for Dollars at the Palm Springs Lane this Thursday at 3 p.m. It's $20 per person. We're providing the shoes and the bowling for free. There'll be some food available as well, at least cake, I know that. And we're certainly going to invite everyone to come to that event. It should be a real fun event.
And what time is that?
That's at 3 p.m.
3 p.m. Okay. And anything else coming up that we need to know about? Or are you going to let us know in the future?
I'll let you know.
You'll let us know.
It'll be on my website.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Thanks.
You feel good about the campaign?
I do feel good about the campaign. It is quite an undertaking for this campaign. I'll tell you right now, running for office has been an interesting process for me. I'm not the kind of person who wants to and likes running for office. I want to get in there and I want to get stuff done.
You want to get the work done.
And that's been my history and my work history in my past, and that's what I want to do. So,
well, I think that's pretty good. I like that. That's a good way to look at it. I know that that was kind of the feeling that Congressman Ruiz had. He wanted to, the campaigning was fun. It's interesting. You learn a lot.
Yes.
But now get me elected so I can get the work done, and that's really where you're coming from. You certainly have an enthusiasm that is very, very clear when you talk about Cathedral City. You love that city, don't you?
I do very much.
And you care about it and care about what's going to happen with it.
Yep.
And we're looking at a lot of development, and we're looking at a lot of changes that are going to be made.
I agree. And just on that point, we can't stop development. Development is an important part. And in fact, the valley is going to continue to grow.
Yeah.
There's no question there either. We need to make sure that what we do is sustainable in nature. And there are ways, and we need to look at all aspects of how to make that development sustainable and beneficial to the residents, the citizens.
Do you think that you've got a lot on the agenda here? The city's got a lot on the agenda. Does it have the budget to make all of this happen at this point?
I think the economic development is the key to all of this, because we need more revenue streams. We need more tax base. And the only way we're going to get that is through development. And so I think, our budget is stable at the moment, although it's tight. But I think moving forward, we need to look at those additional revenue streams and create more job opportunities for people.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things that has been brought out by couple of other cities is that people tend to not work there. They live there, but they work elsewhere because there aren't any jobs in their city. It sounds to me like what you're looking to do is create jobs within the city so the people that live there want to stay there.
Exactly.
But they're going to need the shopping. They're going to need the retail. They're going to need, quite frankly, I still mourn the fact that Albertsons is gone from that corner of Date Palm and Gerald Ford, but there's a fitness center going in, so that's pretty good news, I guess, as well. Maybe we need the fitness center more than we need the grocery store, now that I think about it. Shelley, I thank you so much for being with us this morning. This has been most informative. I hope for my listeners it certainly has been for me. And we're going to wish you all the best, and we'll keep plugging away that you are running, because, as I said, there is another gentleman who is also running, and that is Fausto Asensio Jimenez. He is also going to be on the ballot. Both of you have been endorsed by the Riverside County Democratic Party. So that, folks, if that means something to you, those are the two candidates that have been endorsed for City Council, and we appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me this morning, Ellie.
My pleasure, believe me. Okay, here's some announcements, my friends, that you're going to need to know about. As I mentioned last week, one of the things that's going on is that there are house parties that are happening for Carolee Hargrove, our wonderful candidate for the 42nd State Assembly. So the next one is going to be on Sunday, September 21st from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. It's going to be at a private residence in Rancho Mirage. So that, once again, is Sunday, September 21st in Rancho Mirage from 1 to 3. It's an opportunity. The wonderful thing about these house parties, it enables you to come in, sit down, and actually have a conversation with the candidate. Find out more about what they want, what they believe, what they're going to be doing. So that's good stuff. Now, we've got another one coming up that is a big one. On September 18th, one of our candidates for Palm Springs Unified School District, James Williamson, is going to have his kickoff, and it will be on the 18th of September at 5:30 in the evening, and that is going to be at a hotel in Palm Springs. Once again, this is for James Williamson. He is running for Unified School District in Palm Springs. Then on the 21st of September, another event on the 21st. My gosh, they just keep coming. This one is pretty exciting as well, and there is going to be a fundraiser for the California State Controller candidate, Betty Yee. If you have not had the opportunity to hear Betty Yee, you are going to want to mark your calendars for this event. This is going to take place in the private home, and the event is going to be a brunch. So it will be from 10 a.m. until noon, once again in a private home. And then think about it. You can have a nice little brunch, and then you can run over and meet with Carolee Hargrove in Rancho Mirage, so at 1 o'clock. So this works out great. But again, Betty Yee is going to be in town on Sunday, September 21st. This event is taking place in a private home, the home of Jeff Kors and James Williamson. Once again, you must have reservations for this event. Then, on September 25th, there's going to be a fundraiser for Congressman Raul Ruiz. This is also going to be in a private home from 6 p.m. until 8 p.m. Did you get all that, my friends? Here's what you can do. You can call the Democratic headquarters at 760-328-9425. 760-328-9425. We will help you get reservations for this event. events. We will help you get more information about them, where they're going to be located, and so on and so forth. Next week, my guest is going to be candidate for state controller Betty Yee. I am absolutely delighted that she is going to be my guest next week. Following that, we're going to have another one of our candidates. Before the end of the month, we will have the wonderful Manuel Perez with us. As I said, it is election season. It is full on. I know it's exhausting. I know you're getting stuff in the mail that you just want to throw out. Don't. Be an informed voter, my friends. I recognize you get all this stuff in the mail and you think, oh, for heaven's sakes, who cares? I'll tell you who cares. The people care. And they care because when we don't vote, we end up, in the state of Texas, for example, with Ted Cruz. When we don't vote, we end up with people who have no interest in the American people, really. They have interest in themselves. Look what happened to Eric Cantor. He finally lost an election, and what did he do? He immediately went to Wall Street. What does that tell you? We have the ability to make a difference. This election is critical. I know. You've heard it over and over and over again. This is the most important election in your entire life. Well, the next 2 years of the president's term is going to be what happens to this country, literally. We need to turn the House of Representatives back to the Democrats. And we need to maintain the Senate for the Democrats. Because if we don't, if the Senate goes Republican, nothing will get done except foolishness for the last 2 years of President Obama's term. I don't know about you, but I don't want that. I want to make sure that Congressman Raul Ruiz goes back to Congress. I want to make sure that Carolee Hargrove and Eduardo Garcia are in the State Assembly representing me. I want that to happen. So, I thank you again, Shelley Kaplan, for being with us this morning. It's been a lot of fun and most informative. You all take care. Have a good week. Be kind to yourself so you have time to be kind to others. Bye-bye for now, my friends.